In 1922, a 15-year-old boy arrives for his first day of work at a modest auto repair shop in Tokyo, Japan. The owner, who questioned whether the boy was even meant for this type of business, assigned him to clean the workshop and look after his child instead. At the time, nobody thought much of it, nor did they care, but only because they had no idea who this kid would eventually become. Fast forward a few decades, and that boy, Soichiro Honda, was now competing with some of the biggest car brands in the world, while also owning the largest motorcycle manufacturer. The narrative begins in 1906 in a small, impoverished village called Tenryu, Shizuoka, at the foot of Mount Fuji. It was there that Honda and his wife received their first son, Soichiro Honda. Soichiro's father was a local blacksmith from the hamlet, who also repaired bicycles on the side, and his mother was an expert weaver raised in severe economic straits. Soichiro lost 5 of his siblings growing up due to health issues. When Soichiro was 8 years old, he was going about his normal routine in the neighborhood when he heard a strange rumble that caught his attention. He followed the sound until he came across a large piece of strange machinery rolling along on 4 wheels. This machine was a Ford Model T, and Soichiro was left captivated by what he had just witnessed. This incident left an impact on his life, forever changing the way he engaged with machinery. He learned how to wet the blades of farm machinery and repair bicycles. He was fascinated by all kinds of engines and motors, but Soichiro hated the idea of going to school. Instead of pursuing a proper education, he spent the majority of his childhood helping his father with his bicycle repair business. His lack of interest in school affected his grades so terribly that he used some rubber that he found to forge his family stamp on his grade reports. In 1922, Soichiro came across a magazine ad for Art Shokai, a popular automobile servicing company in Tokyo. He wrote a letter inquiring about a job and received a positive response. His father punished him by making him kneel on his knees for an entire day without lunch. When Soichiro got to Tokyo, he was overwhelmed to see how fast and different city life was compared to the village he had come from. When Soichiro arrived, the shop's owner, Yuzo Sakakibara, had a job already prepared for him. He was to babysit the owner's child. Soichiro was disappointed to find that, over the next few months, he wasn't making any money, and the only work tasks he was assigned were to carry a baby wrapped around on his back. The only thing that made him stay was the shame of returning home a failure and facing his parents. As time went by, the owner couldn't keep up with the high demand of his automobile business, so he finally pulled Soichiro in to help him out. Even though Soichiro started out doing menial tasks, he gradually climbed his way up until he became a trusted mechanic at the company. His talent and dedication eventually caught the attention of the owner, who decided to take little Soichiro under his wing and teach him not only mechanical repairs, but the business side of the company as well. Although Sakakibara's repair work included both automobiles and bicycles, cars were not as popular then as they are today. Not only were automobiles a luxury that only people of the upper class could afford, but most of the automobiles around at the time were foreign-made. Through his work, Soichiro quickly became familiar with a wide range of automobiles, including Lincolns, Mercedes, Daimlers, and even various motorcycles that were brought into the workshop. Soichiro poured everything he had into expanding his knowledge and understanding of his craft. It was through this company that Soichiro was also introduced to the world of motorsports. Around this time, motorsports were quickly gaining popularity around Europe, America, and even Japan. In 1923, Sakakibara himself began to build racing cars with the help of his workers, including Soichiro. Their first model was the Art Daimler, built using a second-hand Daimler engine, and their second model was the Curtiss. The Curtiss was made using another second-hand engine from an American Curtiss biplane, placed on the chassis of another American car, the Mitchell. This car would go on to race in the 5th Japanese Motor Car Championship in 1924, taking a stunning first position with Sakakibara's brother as driver and Soichiro as the accompanying engineer. It was a special experience for the 17-year-old boy, and from then on, motorsports became his religion. On his own in 1926, Soichiro was drafted for military service, but didn't pass the medical exams, as they revealed that he was colorblind. Thus, he was excused from the army and was able to keep working at Art Shokai. By 1928, Yuzo Sakakibara wanted to expand his business and decided to open a branch of Art Shokai in Hamamatsu. He believed there was no better man to leave in charge than his young apprentice, and at the age of 21, Soichiro was called upon to run the new branch. However, Soichiro's repair shop struggled during the first year, largely because people didn't want to entrust their cars with someone so new and so young. So, Soichiro had to live off the scraps that other repair shops cast aside. Still, the young man used all the knowledge and skill he had acquired over the years, and in time, he successfully managed to grow his business. By the 1930s, his new shop had grown from a one-man operation to a staff of 30 people. The branch grew at an incredible pace during the next few years, and with so much work to be done, Soichiro had to bring his wife in to help run the company. Even though Soichiro was known as a brilliant mechanic, he was also a prodigious racing driver, and this was another skill that helped him stand out from his peers. Inside his shop, Soichiro had built the Hamamatsu race car, in which he managed to set a new speed record by driving it up to 120 kilometers per hour, a record that stood for 20 years in Japan. However, racing at the time was far more dangerous than it is today, and in June 1936, Honda was involved in a serious crash while racing the Hamamatsu in the suburbs of Tokyo and almost died. Soichiro's left arm was fractured, his shoulder was dislocated, and his face was damaged. Despite spending a couple of months at the hospital nursing his injuries, Soichiro returned to the racetrack 4 months later, but his family was dissatisfied. After several disputes with his wife and father, Soichiro stopped racing. In 1936, Honda proposed separating the Art Shokai Hamamatsu branch from the repair shop to focus on manufacturing car parts. However, the shareholders of the company disagreed, believing that the current orders and workload from the repair shop were profitable enough to justify the venture. Soichiro and Kato worked tirelessly in their new venture, and together started the Art Piston Ring Research Center. Soichiro, in particular, was still working at his Hamamatsu branch, spending his days at the repair workshop and his nights developing pistons. For a long time, they struggled to make any breakthrough, and during the next couple of years, Soichiro had worked so much that he lost a lot of weight, causing his face to look emaciated. All the stress his body and mind were going through made him look like a completely different person. After a series of failures, Soichiro decided to enroll as a part-time student at the Hamamatsu Industrial Institute to improve his knowledge of metallurgy. It wasn't until 1939 when Soichiro would finally create a successful working piston. Confident in his design, he quit his job at Art Shokai, handing the branch off to some of his trainees, and proceeded to work full-time at his new company. Honda began producing pistons day in and day out, but his creations were still flawed and nowhere near the quality they needed to be. Toyota contacted Soichiro to make pistons for the company, and out of the 50 he submitted, only 3 passed Toyota's standard. It was a big setback for Soichiro, but he didn't give up. He spent the next few years traveling around Japan, visiting steel-making companies and universities to improve his knowledge of manufacturing piston rings. After gaining confidence in his knowledge and experience, Soichiro gave it another try. The result was incredible. Not only did his new pistons pass quality control, but orders also began to come in from all over the country. So much so that the company went on to employ around 2,000 people just to catch up with the orders. Things were starting to look great for Soichiro and his company until Japan joined the Pacific War in 1941. And Soichiro's company was placed under the direct command and control of the Ministry of Munitions. The following year, Toyota took over 45% of the company's equity, and Soichiro was downgraded from president to the position of senior managing director. Things went from bad to worse as many male employees began to resign as they were drafted for military service, and his company began to struggle. Despite Soichiro's efforts to keep his company afloat, he was unprepared for what was to come. In 1944, air raid sirens intensified in Japan, signaling the country's impending defeat. Soichiro's company faced numerous challenges during World War II, including a direct bomb blast that destroyed the factory in Hamamatsu, a Nankai earthquake that caused the Iwana plant to collapse, and Japan's eventual surrender in August 1945. Despite nearly losing everything, Soichiro decided to sell his company to Toyota for 450,000 yen. A year after the war, Japan was facing an economic crisis that threatened citizens' lives. Food, clothing, and shelter were scarce, and resources were rationed. Soichiro Honda struggled to find enough gas to drive to the market and feed his family. One day, he became fascinated by a generator engine used by the Japanese Imperial Army to power a wireless radio during World War II. This sparked an idea to attach the engine to a bicycle, a concept not new in Europe, which had already made its way to Japan. Soichiro's new bicycles quickly became popular, prompting him to design and develop his own engine. In 1947, he completed the Taipei engine, marking the first time the Honda name appeared on a machine. In 1948, Soichiro Honda founded the Honda Motor Company with the goal of building motorcycles to help Japanese workers. To expand production, he wrote an open letter to all 18,000 bicycle shop owners in Japan, offering a solution to get Japan moving again. He received positive responses from 3,000 stores. Unsatisfied with his first motorcycle, Soichiro decided to construct a smaller and lighter version. After 3 years of trial and error, he succeeded in creating the Super Cub. The Super Cub was a massive success, winning the Emperor's Prize. Honda partnered with investor Takeo Fujisawa to secure funding and develop financial and marketing strategies. This partnership became the foundation upon which Honda Motor Company was built. The Super Cub reached the United States in 1958 with a sticker price of just $295, a quarter the price of American motorcycles, and soon outsold both Triumph and Harley-Davidson in their respective home markets. By then, Soichiro had also expanded his motorcycle brand into the racing world. Racing was more than just a sport. It was the biggest platform for manufacturing companies to showcase their cars and motorcycles to the world. Soichiro traveled globally to study and examine his competitors' motorcycles. In fact, throughout his career, whenever a benchmark was set by a competitor, Honda would take that information home and strive to surpass it. This attitude propelled Honda motorcycles from an awful and disappointing finish at their first international race in 1954 to winning the manufacturer's team prize at the 1959 Isle of Man TT, the biggest motorcycle race in the world. 2 years later, Honda won again at the Isle of Man TT, and their success on the racetrack put the Honda name on the map. By the 1960s, Honda had become the biggest motorcycle company in the world. After the release of the Honda Dream in 1949, the company produced 10 million motorcycles by 1968. However, becoming the biggest motorcycle company wasn't enough for Soichiro. There was another dream he had been chasing since he was 8 years old: entering the car-making industry. When Soichiro announced his plans to enter the vehicle business, many told him it was too risky for the company and that he should focus on motorcycles instead. Japan was already facing fierce competition from Nissan, Toyota, and other car makers. Japanese officials even tried to persuade Soichiro that the country didn't need another car manufacturer. But Soichiro refused to listen. Honda unveiled its first automobile in 1963 with the T360, a tiny truck that was small but reliable. However, the mini truck failed to gain popularity and was replaced by the S500, Honda's first sports car. The Honda S500 was a two-door roadster with a 4-speed transmission and a top speed of 80 miles per hour. Despite being a smaller car, it was smooth and easy to drive. However, only around 1,300 units were built, making it one of the rarest Honda cars ever made. Honda also entered the racing world with the RA271, which made its Formula One debut at the 1964 Belgian Grand Prix. It only took 1 year for Honda to achieve a first-place victory at the 1965 Mexican Grand Prix, with their new successor, the RA272. Despite this early success on the racetrack, Honda was still far from beating its competitors in the car market. So, they took a break from racing and turned their attention to building one of the most successful cars in the automobile market, the Honda Civic. Honda debuted the Civic in 1972, and in the following years, it became one of the most popular cars in the world. One of the reasons for its success, especially in European and American markets, was due to the oil crisis of the 1970s. During this period, fuel shortages spread globally, and Honda devised a new method for fuel management called compound vortex controlled combustion (CVC). This allowed people to travel further distances without burning too much fuel. Honda also tackled the pollution problem caused by exhaust gases by adding a catalytic converter to its vehicles, something that other automakers hadn't considered as much at the time. And just like that, Honda rapidly became popular in the automobile market. Even though Americans bought the Civic out of necessity, it was the Honda Accord that really changed the game. Initially, the Honda Accord debuted as a compact hatchback, but later expanded into sedans. The Accord came with the same fuel-efficient features as the Civic, but offered a more modest size and improved interior room and comfort, making it one of the best-selling vehicles in the world. By the 1980s, Honda Motor Company had become the third largest car producer in Japan, and by the end of the decade, it was the world's third largest. Soichiro Honda retired from the company in 1973 and passed away on August 5, 1991. Reflecting on his work, Soichiro said, "I see that I made several mistakes and omissions, yet I am proud of my accomplishments. My faults and failures were not for the same reasons." Honda has since grown into areas like aircraft, boat engines, power equipment, and robotics. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe and like the video. I will see you in the next one.